The best way of having tons of commander decks is to build as many as possible, and so that is why we are going to look at a budget-friendly Storm deck today. Alright, so you can see here, this is my moxfield. It's the best place to build any kind of deck in my opinion. Of course, we're going with Storm here. Now, it is interesting, while I'm saying this is a budget deck, you can see right at the bottom here, it is $103.73 at the moment of this recording. So it is a super budget deck, but that's a caveat that these cards are so new from the Secret Lair drop that they actually are not yet priced out in TCG Player. So I believe the non-foil Secret Lair drop of Storm was $50, and every card from that Secret Lair drop is in this deck. So I thought it was fitting to have all of her cards in here. So technically this would be a $153 deck, $154 deck, so just keep that in mind. And I do have a couple spells at the end of this that I want to show you that I think would be really fun if you want to amp it up a little bit. But for the most part, this is a really budget Storm Force of Nature deck. I thought it would be a lot of fun, of course, to do Storm because it's Storm, so we got to be doing all the Storm shenanigans. Otherwise, I thought herself as a mutant, if we could get other mutant typal creatures in this deck, that would be a lot of fun. And that got me thinking, mutate as a mechanic is underutilized and I think is really fun, and it's just a bunch of shenanigans that your opponents will not be expecting. So that's how we kind of went in with this deck. So if we look at Storm first, she is a green, blue, and red as a 3/4 mutant hero with flying vigilance. And whenever Storm deals combat damage to a player, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has Storm. So she herself is making the Storm trigger happen, which is really exciting. We're just putting in a lot of instants and sorceries to make sure that it's all kind of shenanigans happening throughout the entire game. So as we first look at the creatures, obviously we're going in with the beautiful Ikoria mutate creatures. So a lot of these are just going to be things that make sense for mutate decks. Mutate is a really specific mechanic that you have to be careful of how you are choosing your creatures to mutate, and I am going to be doing +1/+1 counters in this deck as well. So that means that we really want to be careful of when we're changing the mutate, how we're doing that. It really just matters when and why we are doing it. So certain creatures will allow us to have +1/+1 counters created. We'll get to make a 3/3 token if this creature mutates. This one, for example, has a flying trample as a 6/6 with mutate 4 red or green and 2 blue, whereas you see the original CMC is 2 green, blue, and red. So the mutate cost is a bit bigger, and that's because when it mutates, you get this extra thing. For example, here we get, whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. So we get options. I love that. You guys know that. Getting able to put it into the battlefield or in your hand is perfect because if we're getting instants and sorceries, we want to make sure we get the Storm effect later. And if it's a land, we are definitely waiting to play our lands so that we can put the lands, get all the lands out there. Hopefully we'll get more lands every turn, but otherwise it's just going on the battlefield, which is crazy. So really excited about that. Got as many pretty Ikoria full art borderless cards as I could. Otherwise I just tried to find things that were making sense for this deck. With the mutant creatures as well, like this one, it's a mutant beast. It's from Warhammer, the Warhammer series that came out. When at ETBs, flip a coin for each opponent you have. For each flip you win, draw a card. For each flip you use, it deals 3 damage to that player. So just shenanigans, getting to do a bunch of fun stuff. Only having 25 creatures in this deck. Again, we're wanting to make sure that we're spending most of our time on instants and sorceries to really make the Storm thing happen. But for the rest of this, I'm just going to go ahead and show you that I do have some tags in moxfield to show us that at the end of the day, I have a deck building strategy that does pretty well no matter what power level I'm doing. And that is going to be 7 to 10 card draw, 7 to 10 ramp. You want to make sure that you have like 6 removal spells, and then you got like 30 to 40 synergy spells. And a lot of your cards are going to be multiple of those things. So if we take a look here, none of my lands are tagged out, of course. I'm getting 18 cards that technically help me with the draw. Now, of course, let's look at this first one. In case of the Rain-Sacked Lab, instant and sorcery spells you cost 1 less to cast. That's going to help us with Storm. To solve, you've cast 4 more instant or sorcery spells this turn, which is going to be easy because that's what this deck is focusing on. And then once it is solved, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. So this is helping us earlier by getting the cost down, but then we're getting that card draw ability later. And this is an enchantment. People run creature removal a lot more common than they do enchantment removal. Very excited about that. Of course, we're going to have like this creature. It's a creature, but it's also helping with card draw because whenever it mutates, draw a card. So generally, like this would just be a synergistic card as a creature, but because it does have that draw card, I wanted to show you that it's really easy to get that 7 to 10 card draw in your deck. So we're having technically 18 cards that are helping us draw cards with Storm here. It's kind of crazy, but a lot of fun things. I would just really have a lot of fun with it. And that's kind of the same for ramp. So we're having less ramp here with only 12 spells, but that's still a lot. Of course, our Soul Ring is going to be helping with ramp. We also have Arcane Signet helping with ramp, the classics like Cultivate and Nature's Lore, but then also, again, creatures like the Red Death Shipwrecker. You can go target creature an opponent controls, and then that player draws a card, but you add 1 red. So you're getting to do shenanigans for your other people around you with a gameplay strategy, but adding 1 red, 1 mountain, technically we are ramping by getting that 1 extra red. So I count it. You should too. That's just my thing. But of course, we're going to do fun stuff like Explorer's Scope as well. Whenever a crypt creature attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. So that's where we're getting multiple lands a turn to really help us to play all those crazy things later. If we're looking at removal, technically it says I have 19 removal, which is crazy. But again, I'm counting things like Lightning Bolt, Counterspell, even Colossus Hammer. If I'm getting a creature 10-10 and it has trample, yeah, technically that's removal. I also count Death Touch as removal. So any creature that would have Death Touch, technically also in my opinion, gives removal. That's why Basilisk Collar is here. Giving something Death Touch, that's removal. So a lot of removal here with 19 spells, but I know a lot of people wouldn't count Basilisk Collar as an artifact equipment as removal. In my book, it is. I think you should run it all the time. People hate Death Touch. It's so fun to play. Of course, we're going to have really good spells that do multiple things as well, like Refute. I love this card. It's a new one from Foundations. It's so good. Counter target spell, so we're removing something, and draw a card, discard a card. So you're getting to manipulate your deck to make it a smaller library so that you're more likely to get the cards that you want, and you're drawing a card. So you get to pick what you keep in your hand, figure out what's most helpful for you. Possibilities are endless, which is great. Synergy cards is just going to be really fun things. Again, Glowing One, Death Touch, Rad Counters, Milling, whatever. That's not a huge strategy of this deck. It's just a fun little added perk. So, of course, I want to add that. But it's a mutant. You can see it's a mutant, a zombie mutant. So, that's where we're getting these mutant typals in here. Same thing with Experiment Crash. +1/+1s, trying to make things big and beefy and scary. Just a lot of fun stuff. So at the end of the day, I think this is a pretty good deck. It's not going to be the most powerful at the table. Obviously, people are building EDH decks for Storm, which I think is wonderful and so good. I'm not doing that. I like budget decks, so this is going to be a lot of fun, I think. There were a couple cards. Let's go down to the bottom to see the cards that I was considering. I really had 2 main ones. Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm. Wow, I was flustered there. Okay, so Flusterstorm. I took this out because it needed to make sure that I could get my cost down. There's another card in here that's pretty much the same thing. What was it? Was it this one? Yeah, Hindering Touch for a 35-cent card where it costs 3 and a blue. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. Storm. Love it. Whereas this one down here, Flusterstorm, counter target spell, instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 1. Also Storm. Much lower CMC of 1 blue, so that's way better than the 4, which obviously makes sense of why it's a $9 card instead of a 30-cent card. But I needed this to be a budget deck, so that one got cut. Easy to switch those out if you want, or just add it in. Double Vision is also really fun. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. I already have a couple cards that do this in the deck. Example here with Thousand Year Storm. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for the first instant or sorcery spell you've cast this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. This costs 4, a blue and a red as an enchantment, whereas Double Vision is 3 and 2 red. So it just kind of depends what you're going for. Obviously, if you're having both on the battlefield, you're going to do way more shenanigans, which would be super, super fun. But I just needed to make the cut. So there's a ton of creatures that would make this way, way, way powerful. Craterhoof Behemoth, automatic add. I mean, if you're wanting to do all the things, full send and have fun, my friend. But I hope that this is a good look at a budget-friendly Storm deck that you might be able to run in your playgroup. I think there are so many decks that are really easy to make budget friendly. I've heard of people even making $20 commander decks, which is so fun. And obviously you Pauper players know what I'm talking about, but I hope that you really enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for hanging out in the Queen Honey Games community. We got the Discord below. It's a great place to be. I would love to hang out with you and get video ideas. So let me know what you think. Always appreciate your support. Thank you so much for being here. And as always, happy gaming.